This is Death or Prison, brought to you by leanonmeusa.org. We bring you stories of hope and encouragement.
Welcome to the Death or Prison podcast, brought to you by Lean On Me USA. I'm your host, Oswald Newbold.
And I'm Elmo Big Mo Golden.
And in the studio today, we have Gerard White.
Hey guys, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here for sure.
Welcome here.
Always our pleasure, man.
We hear that you have a powerful story, and I don't want to take anything away from it. So I'm going to let you just let us hear some of that powerful story.
Well, I appreciate that. Know that it's my story. I know everybody has a story that's listening and watching. It's a story how God has showed what he can do for one person and prepare me for that battle ahead, you know? So that's kind of a brief snippet of how my story is, you know? My story, like many people probably listening, I made a lot of mistakes early on in my childhood life, you know? Growing up, my parents got divorced at an early age. By the age of 5, my parents got divorced, and my father got separated. I didn't know my father. I didn't see my father for 13 years of my life. So as a man growing up without his father in his household, with a stepdad that tried to do the best he could do, but there really wasn't faith, or there was that thing that was missing in my life, you know? I looked to the world at outside men to idolize, you know, to what a man should be. And in the environment that I grew up in, it was drugs, money, everything the world tells you a man should do. So I quickly fell into that. You know, very easily fell into that. As young men do, we're influenced very easily. I know I was. I'm sure you guys were yourself too.
Maybe.
Right? I'm sure. We often are. You know, we fall to the traps of the world. So anyway, I fell into that lifestyle. Thought I knew what was best for me at 16. I moved out of the house, started selling drugs. Always had a job. You know, I always believe in hard work. I was blessed to have other men. There were some good men that kind of lifted me up along the way, that taught me, you know, the basic roots of how you should be, you know.
Right. But hold on one second. Now, you say you moved out of the house at 16.
I thought I was the only one that heard that.
At 16.
Yeah. My home environment really wasn't the best. You know, there was some things going on. My mother had struggled with depression, and there were other things. And I looked around at my environment and I said to myself, I can provide for myself better than the situation I'm in here now. And I know I had to separate myself from that, or I was going to fall into that trap, you know? And I could see the mindset, even at 16, I could see the mindset that my mother and my stepdad had, and it wasn't where I wanted for my life. Tough to say, or hard to say for some people to see at 16, but I saw that. Now, my choice was about money at that point. It was about money and material things. So I chased that drug route, you know, the things that the way I thought was the fastest way to get me money.
Right.
You know?
How did you get involved in this selling drugs, though?
Well, it started with just your friends. Everybody's using drugs, right? Everybody's smoking a little bit. And turns out the person across the street from me in the neighborhood I live was kind of the person that they went to, you know? So instead of everybody going over to her, I approached her and say, hey, you know, let me get a little of this and I'll keep your spot from getting hot. And that instantly grew. To a lot more people knew me because I was younger. I was out. I was at the parties. And then we all know that it starts off with marijuana, and then it starts going to ecstasy and cocaine and everything. Because I also, even though I did use, I looked at it like a business, right? So I wanted to be the person you came to for everything. I didn't want to tell you no.
Right.
So it just, one thing leads to another. And before you know it, that quarter ounce of marijuana is equaling to ounces of cocaine, you know, and more. So.
And you know, we never really talk about that lifestyle.
Yeah.
We always talk about being addicted to the drug. Were you ever addicted to the lifestyle?
Oh, 100% I was addicted to the lifestyle. More so the lifestyle than the drug. I was the type of person that I could have lots of drugs on me and stop. My friends would always go, how can you do that? I was addicted to the money and the people calling me. I love the fact that I had 2 phones. At that time, your phones could only reach 500 contacts. I love the fact that I had to have 2 phones. I love that attention because I didn't have that attention growing up. I didn't get that attention I needed from my father or my mother. So I looked at it from outside things. So I was definitely addicted to the lifestyle.
Gerard, and that brings me to a question. So at 16, you left home, right? And you felt you could do it on your own at 16. And if you didn't know you could do it, you was willing to try because you wanted to move on. And in the back of my mind, I'm saying, Where do you think you had the tools at 16 to make it? You say you didn't really know your father. Where do you think you had the tools in you to say, I could make it in life at 16? Was it TV? Was it friends? Was it just you felt you can do it? Where do you think that came from? Because you speak it with an air of confidence that, hey, I'm going to try this at 16. I got to go. But what made you think you could make it at 16? What was that influence?
You know, I grew up fast. In my environment, I grew up fast. You know, at age of 10, 11, 12, I was taking care of my sister. You know, so I just had to grow up fast.
Responsibility.
Responsibility just came to me. Yeah,
Okay.
I always one that just never shied away from responsibility or stepping into that role. I don't think there was one person that played an impact. I always looked out and I could see, you know, I had friends, right? So I could go to their house and I could see the lifestyle that they lived. And I knew the lifestyle I was in was not normal. Right?
Okay.
I could
You
see
recognized that.
I recognized it from an early age. Yeah, I was the type of person that I would, hey, my parents would drop me off at school, right? And then I wasn't even zoned to that. And I would go home with friends just to put myself in another environment. I did that because I knew the environment I was in was not good. So I was just observer. I was a very good observer and I saw how other people lived and other things and I wanted those things. And I knew the environment I was in was not giving me those. So I said, I'm just going to go after it. I'm just going to go after that lifestyle that I felt like I wanted.
Right.
And you're in that lifestyle. You're 16, you done moved on. I heard you talk about the money, things moving. So what's happening now? You're 16, you're on the move. Where did it go from then? How did that go?
Yeah, so first, you know, like I said, it was just dabbling a little bit. I was working at a gas station, working in a restaurant, just selling drugs on the side. Kind of at that point, it was the beginning point. It was just maintaining and partying, you know? Mm-hmm. Then it escalates, you know, and then you're selling it and you're really seeing the money come in. You know, I got a job. I'm working for the Department of Health as a receptionist. You know, I'm living two different lives, really. I'm working as a receptionist in the office of a state office and selling drugs and partying at night.
Alter ego.
Yeah, I was, you know, and just lost. To be honest with you, I was lost. I had all this money. I had escaped what I saw as a negative mindset lifestyle, and I thought I was living, but deep down inside, I was empty. You know, I truly was lost and I didn't know it at the time. I was drinking all the time. You know, I had fake IDs to get me in the club because, you know, all that lifestyle, what that does. And I was just lost, living for the world, taking money in and spending it just as fast as I got it.
But you didn't know you was empty or lost at the time.
No, I really didn't. You know, for sure, there were times, you know, when you wake up and you're just like going for that. You know, and there's no fulfillment because you know you're lost. You know, you're just letting that wheel kind of go.
Mm-hmm. So that wheel going, and where's that wheel going?
Nowhere good.
Wheel going
I didn't have a plan. That's the thing. I really didn't have a plan. It was just making money, living, being in the moment, making money, trying to be the most popular person that I could be.
School.
Yeah.
You dropped out of school?
Yeah. So going back, before I even moved out, when we moved around a lot. My mother moved us around a lot as kids. And looking back, I never realized why. I found out later on in life it was to keep me hidden from my father from finding us. That's what I later found out. So I was technically homeschooled. Basically, I didn't go to school past middle school, 8th grade. My mom said, we're going to homeschool you guys. I stayed home, never did any schoolwork, never did anything. So at 16, that was the rule. I was out of the house at 15, but she said you couldn't technically move out until you got a high school diploma. At 16, I signed up for a prep class. I walked the 2 miles to go to the prep class because nobody was going to drive me. Went and got my prep class, graduated, got my GED, and I left. That was my school. So I didn't technically go to school past 8th grade.
Right.
And went and did the training course to get my GED, passed it, and moved on. That was it. I even tried to go to college during that time. And this is one thing that led me deeper into the drugs because I had to get your parents to sign your FAFSA form to go. She wouldn't sign it. My mother wouldn't sign it for me. Right. So that kind of just led me further down that route. Because once again, I felt like if you're not going to do what I feel like a parent should do for their child to see them success, then I'm just going to take it more on myself to go in that direction. And it led me nowhere good.
Right.
You know?
You notice how I mean, and it may be personal, but you notice how he shies away from like really telling us about the situation that was in the house. You say it was just not good.
Yeah,
That's all you say. But
I don't want to. I don't. You know why I do that is because I don't want to lead any shame to or disgrace to my parents,
right
to my mother.
right.
You know,
So
that's the reason why.
right. I know.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And
can say
we
it.
won't. No, we won't.
But I just
push
don't
it.
want to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to, because I still haven't connected that connection with my mother yet.
Okay.
You know, and that's
Right.
been something for a long time. I've reached out through text and communication, but I don't know where she is in her depression state. And I know how sensitive that is for people.
Right.
And I don't want to cause that to make it further from her without
Right.
hearing it.
Don't want
You
to
know what I'm
cause
saying?
any trauma.
Yeah, that's really
Right.
why I don't. And I have no, I mean, there was a time we were taken out by DCF because my mother had a thing with overabundance. They had a bunch of animals in the household, you know, and there was tons of animals. DCF took us out for 6 weeks because it was like, what are they living in? You know, it was just a bad environment, you know, physical abuse only a couple times, you know, a lot of verbal abuse, you know, making us, she literally had me and my sister, who was even younger than me, taking care of my younger brothers all the time while she was gone. You know, so that's why I said I was forced into taking that adult role at an early age.
Right.
You know, yeah, and that's what it was. You know, it was just the no lack of growing up. I didn't know what love was. You know,
Right.
I didn't feel that. I longed for that growing up. That was something that
Right.
was not there in my household.
I see a lot of that now, where the older sibling literally has become everything. The babysitter. My sister had to do that.
Yeah,
And now because of that, I actually don't go to my mother with any problems. I go to my sister. And I can understand that role reversal part of, and I respect what you're saying too about, you know, that, and I honor that about keeping your mama's name sacred because you know you don't understand like totally what she went through and everything.
yeah, for sure.
But because of that though, you had to make those choices at a young age that led you to what Oswald was getting at.
Yeah.
It led you to nowhere.
Yeah. Well, because at a young age, you know, you don't understand all those aspects. Right now, as I'm 39 years old and I look back, I can see that, wow, my mom was young. She had a lot of kids. She was divorced. I don't know the internal workings of that divorce and what that played a part on her and the relationship to her and my dad. And maybe she just wasn't able to deal with all that stuff. So that's why I don't want to speak a lot of that out there, because I understand how everybody has to make decisions based on what their environment, upbringing, and their knowledge gives them. So that's why I don't want to do that, you know, just out of respect and love.
Amen.
You know?
I honor that.
Yeah, for sure.
And something I will say right now, I've heard you use a few words, the word love, responsibility, but even that care for your parents, even despite what you went through, I see you as being a healer, right? Because that's part of the healing process. You don't want to hurt what isn't healed.
For sure.
Right? So that's a great thing. You're 39, and we're still talking about some of your teen years, but it's good that, you know, some people just don't get it. So, I mean, all their life they get it, they don't get it in life. But I could tell you have evaluated life, and I just want to commend you on that in itself, that we need more healers in this world. So that's why I brought that up.
I appreciate that, but it's nothing that it wasn't until I found my faith and I read the words of God and Jesus that I knew that that's the key to life. If I wouldn't have done that, I couldn't be where I am right here today. I would have gone back in and I would have had a B, C, or D letter.
You're selling drugs now.
Yeah.
You're a big time drug seller.
Could give
Living
out
for-
loans if you
right?
want to right there.
Living for the world.
Yeah.
Lost. You know?
You know, you got tons of friends that are really clients,
Yeah.
and you're going now. You're in this world. Were there any arrests?
Yeah. Yeah. I had got a warning arrest, you know, when I was just after I turned 18 with possession of marijuana with intent to sell. So I did 60 days in a county jail with 2 years probation is what I got. Got out, doing on the probation, right back to what I was doing. Right.
You finished the probation.
No. On the probation, I did
on
the
the
60 days in jail.
So you acting up on probation.
Oh, I got right out, and that's when I got the job working for the state, and things actually escalated after that.
Wow.
You know, it was in those 60 days in jail that I connected with some other, you know, resources at that time.
Right.
You know, it didn't slow me down at all. I was still in that this is what I'm doing mindset.
Right.
And I did that for the following year and a half. And at 19, 19 and a half, that's when I really hit the charges that sent me to prison. You know, I got caught with armed trafficking is what they originally charged me with, and cocaine, ecstasy, and marijuana. I was sentenced for, they wanted to give me 35 years. Of course, they wanted me to tell. And I said the line that I was ingrained in my brain, stitches get found in ditches with stitches. So you can take me and I'll handle my own.
Okay, you mentioned armed trafficking, and it leads me to ask, when did you start carrying guns, or when did guns become a part of your life? Because you're selling drugs, but it don't mean you need a gun. Did guns become a part of your life?
Yeah, so after I got out of jail that first time for those 60 days, and I escalated, and it went from just marijuana to heavier amounts of drugs, a gun was required in my mindset.
Scared that you might be...
You're gonna get robbed. Yeah, you're gonna be in a
Okay.
situation, and those things did happen. You know, those situations did come up, and that's just when you're living that lifestyle. That's what you are told that you have to do. You know, like that's just part of it.
Right.
So yeah, I just got a pistol and always had it on me. I was the type of person that I wouldn't even leave my house. I wouldn't even walk out of my bedroom. That was the mindset that I had.
Right.
I always had it on me all the time. So much to the fact that I even said there were so many clips for them and one for me at the end. That's kind of the mindset that I had. That's why I said I was lost. To have that mindset, I knew I was lost. But yeah, so I had armed trafficking at that time. Like I said, God finds a way to show us signs even when we don't know they're there. Because I was in county jail for a while fighting my case over for fruit of the poisonous tree law of illegal search and seizure. When I actually got arrested, I had nothing physically on me. And the officer arrested me for violation of probation. That was why they arrested me. But then they took my keys and they went to my car and searched it and then to a room.
Yeah, how did you violate probation?
It was a technical violation, something on an application that was checked wrong with a new probation officer.
Wow.
But that was God. Knowing that was God, you know, looking back. So it was just a technical violation. So I was in county jail for 9 months fighting this case, and the judge, I almost got awarded the grant to throw everything out on the fruit of the poisonous tree, but he said the evidence was so substantial that he wasn't going to do it, but he would allow me to take a plea, but still appeal my case, something that typically you're not allowed to do if you take a plea.
Right.
But in that, I beat the gun charge. So the armed trafficking got reduced to just trafficking. So I was able to get that part taken off. And so that's when I was able to get the final plea to, it was 5 years running consecutive is what the final plea was. And I jumped on that after being in county jail for 9 months, facing 35 and having the one down, knowing I could still appeal the case. I said, let me go ahead and take this, you know, but it was in county jail during those 9 months that I was preparing for that I picked up the Bible for my first time, you know. And
why did you pick up the Bible?
I didn't know where to turn. All those friends, all those contacts that I had, nobody called. I mean, people answer the phone a couple of times, and you really realize that you're alone. You know, you're alone. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? You know? And so I just picked it up. It was there. I didn't do it right from the start. You know, you're in there for months and months. And actually was working as a trustee in the jail, in the kitchen. And I had a New Testament Bible could fit in my pocket. You know, and I would just read it over and over again. There were so many things I started reading it that I knew true, like things that I didn't even know were from the Bible. You know, like little things, like how you can tie a string around your finger to remember. That's in Proverbs. And I said, well, I've heard that before, but to me, it was like, look at all these things that I use or I know in my life that are from the Word, but I don't know the Word. And then with the whole Adam and Eve and the fruit of the poisonous tree and me being in jail under the law of the fruit of the poisonous tree was like, maybe I should look into this, you know? So I did, and I seeked it out and, you know, ended up going to prison. And I remember right as I was going to prison, I had an older gentleman tell me, you got two choices as you go in there, and you're going to look around, you're going to see the people that make those choices. You can allow it to make you bitter or allow it to make you better, and it's really up to you. And that's the mindset that I took going in. You know, I always have had a strong mindset, you know, early on, like this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to handle it. So that's kind of the mindset that I had going into prison.
What were you going to do and how were you going to handle it?
I was just going to make it through it. You know, whatever came my way, I know I was going to make it through it. And I was going to always stay focused on doing the right thing. You know,
but typically the first time,
yeah,
You reading my mind, Elmo, because I wanted to ask you, you're 19 years old.
Yeah.
The gun is gone now.
Yeah.
Right? It's just you.
Yeah.
Just you and the good Lord and your Bible.
For sure.
Right? What was your mindset as a 19-year-old headed to prison, not really knowing what you're facing? You only know what you've heard, but now you're about to go, you're on the county jail van, let's say,
Yeah.
and you're going to prison. What was really running through your mind at that time, man? Like, what was running through your mind?
Well, I was 20 years old by the time I'm actually going into prison. I remember being on that county jail van and pulling up to Lake Butler, to those gates, you know, and you enter that long hallway where everybody's lined up and yelling and screaming. You don't know what to expect, you know? I remember getting through those first few hours, which is just kind of madness, you know? And then I knew that I could, as a young white guy at 20 years old, about 130 pounds, I know that somebody was going to try me, you know, but I also knew that I couldn't back down. No matter what came my way, I couldn't back down. And that was really the mindset of the hand. But God had his hand on me, you know, to be honest with you. I had a couple situations where I had to stand up for myself and, you know, you got in an altercation or two. But I never was going to click up. That's another thing someone told me too. Don't click up. And I gained a lot of respect at the camps I went because of that.
Right.
You know, so I was always kind of blessed in that area. You know,
What was the first camp you went to?
Century. I went to Century. I was sentenced all the way to Century. And I remember it was way up there. And I remember the first couple weeks I'm there, they get put on a lockdown. We were on lockdown for like 10 days because they found a gun on the compound. That was right from the start. And then we got off of lockdown, and if someone got stabbed, we were actually headed to medical. And somebody got stabbed and they locked the camp down again. And I saw the whole, it was an early morning type of thing, taking us out at nighttime in shackles to get blood tests. And so it was a tough camp, you know?
Oh, I know. Century's 5 minutes from Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah. I go over there and do ministry work. And that's a high ranking camp.
Yeah.
For somebody to just be walking into.
You have to know how to handle yourself, you know, and like I said, God had his hand on me. I was always the type of person, I just kind of did my own thing, you know. I connected with a few people, but never got close to anybody. Someone told me that going in, don't get too close to anybody, you know, so I kind of kept that mindset.
A spiritual moment with me. When you say God has his hand on you, do you mean like in protecting you or giving you the wisdom? Help me in a spiritual nature right now.
Always he had his hand on me to protect me. You know, there was altercations that I got into, but that doesn't mean there was ever really harm done to me.
Right.
And then also by guidance, I stayed in his word. I did. You know, I never was one to go to chapel because I was always under the impression that the weak guys went to chapel, right? And there's a lot of predators and things like that where they're in the chapel, and I know that a lot of times. So I stayed away from that. I just got into God's word because I know I can go to God's word and God will speak to me through that. And that's kind of what I did. It's just staying in God's word and letting him prepare me and make me that new man that it says in his word I need to become. Because I knew I was lost before. And even though you say as hard as Century is, that's where I felt peace for the first time, believe it or not. In a prison yard in Century, all the way up there by Alabama, hot in August, and nothing to do, rec yard, or that's it.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing going on there, law library or rec yard. And that's where I found peace for the first time.
How much time did you do?
I did 51 months on 60 is what I did.
51 on 60.
Yep. So I got my game time is what I did.
Yeah.
And ended up, you know, so I was in Century for a little while. Signed up for faith-based because I heard that was, you know, something you could do. And faith-based just happened to be in Wakulla. So I said, oh, that's back to Tallahassee. I could start getting some visits. So I signed up for that. They shipped me to Wakulla. I was there for like 5 days, and then they kicked my bunk to transfer. I'm like, what is going on? You know, I was in transfer for a while, and then I ended up at Lottie CI. Ended up at Lottie. And that was really where I took my spiritual journey a little further because I wasn't just, interesting moment. So as I went through to Wakulla for those 5 days in Tallahassee, I remember driving in the van by a street that was familiar to me. And the instant thought came to me how I could be right back doing what I was doing within a few days. The thought came to me, and I thought that thought was done. And so when I went to Lottie, I remember that thought. I said, why is all this happening? So I didn't just seek out and read the Bible. I said, you know, let me find out what the meaning of life is. Let me seek out all these religions. So I got into some meditation classes because they had a bunch of stuff. And a lot of you had to take courses. It was different than the other. There was things you had to do while you were there. So I read the Quran. You know, I read meditation and Buddhist books. I sat and did that for a while. Meditation actually helped me for a while in dealing with allowing some thoughts and things to come up from my past to truly forgive, which I knew connected to the Bible. But I read Scientology. I kind of read everything. But when it came down to it, is there a God and is Christ is real? The answer to me was yes. So that's how I always landed back on that. That was kind of my journey in that aspect of prison. But I say all this because the prison was really just a preparation for the battle ahead that I didn't know at the time I was going to have. You know, we think that that's the battle that we have to go through. And I finally, as I'm getting ready to get out of prison, I finally get to sign up for work release. I get transferred back to Ocala. They put me on a work detail where I'm working in central office. And I'm thinking like, wow, this is amazing. I went from Century to working on central office as a janitor, right? And I remembered the story in the Bible about Joseph, right? How Joseph always stayed diligent and he was exalted even in prison, to be the head. And here I was, one of like 13 guys working at the headquarters for the Department of Corrections. And I just knew that God was continuing to just speak and protect me and, you know, guide me along my way. Anyway, I get transferred. I'm working in central office. Got 8 months left on my sentence. And I finally get ready to go to work release. They get me to work release. Work release. Did you guys get to go to work release?
No.
No? Okay. So
Not at all.
I was blessed to be able to go. And they give you 30 days to get a job. I'm there for 3 weeks and I start having a pain in my side. Checked out from them, went to the hospital, and turns out they did some tests on me, said I had acid reflux, sent me back. Woke up the next morning and reading my discharge paper, and it said if the pain goes from your stomach to your neck or your back, go back to the hospital immediately. So I checked out, rode my bike to the hospital. The doctor there did some blood work and turned out I had leukemia. That's when I got diagnosed with leukemia. And I remember being in that hospital room all by myself, alone, no phone, can't call anybody. They come in and they tell me that I have cancer. And I say, God, why? Why is this happening to me? You know, I've just been through this, what I thought you were putting me through to prepare me. What have I done wrong? Why are you giving me this cancer?
And how old were you at that time?
23.
23 years old.
23 years old. Yeah, diagnosed with leukemia. They didn't know what type of leukemia. They just knew it was stage 4, accelerated. The pain I had was my spleen was about to erupt. I had had this cancer for a while, and I had had multiple blood tests done to me while I was in prison, and they always said they don't know what they're looking at, but there's something there they're not sure what it is. That kind of happened. So as I'm there in the hospital room and going through those motions, I had to call the work release center, tell them there they had to put a guard outside my door. You know, I'm not sure because I had 30 days to get a job. So I'm there now in 3 weeks. I'm thinking, well, I don't even know what's going to happen, but at least I have leukemia, you know. And when you hear that cancer word, you're like, I'm going to die, right? That's the first thought that you think about when you get cancer. And anyway, I remember being in the hospital room. They're doing all these blood transfusions and tests, cleaning out my blood, and I'm laying there in the hospital bed after 2 blood transfusions, and my body starts to convulsate and shake. I get up to go use the restroom. I come back and my body's shaking uncontrollably. I remember laying in the bed and just saying, focus on your breathing, something I had learned from meditation. Just focus on my breathing and breathing. As I did that and I drifted off, God spoke to me clear as day. And God said, don't worry, I have you. No weapon formed against you will ever prosper. Trust the process. You don't have cancer. Trust the process. And I woke up in that hospital room with like a peace, just knowing that I was good. And there was a flower sitting in my hospital room, thinking to myself, where did these come from? The guard comes in a couple hours later to check that I'm still there. And I said, hey, where the flowers come from? He said, I don't know, some church brought them. I said, a church? I don't even go to church. I'm in prison, right? He said, I don't know, some church brought them. So later on that evening, this lady walks in with her 2 kids and her husband, and she said, hey, we heard about your story. We're here to pray for you. I said, my story? She said, yeah, Tom from the work release came to the church to ask us to pray for you. So I didn't know this at the time because I'd only been at work release for a few weeks, but there was a local church that picked up guys from the work release center and took them there. Well, Tom was a guy that I met after being there for a few weeks that I didn't know from Adam. He was in the day room, and he was stressed. I could see he was worried while he's sitting there. And I said, what's the matter? You can't find a job? He said, no, I got a job, but they're going to send me back because I don't have shoes to wear to a restaurant. If you don't get a job in 30 days, you're back. So I said, what size are you? He said, I'm a 9.5. Well, my dad had sent me some restaurant shoes, and I'm a 9.5. I said, well, take my shoes, man, go to work, and we'll figure it out, you know? Well, he went to work to the church and told them that story, how he had been in prison for 9 years, and nobody just freely gave something to somebody, especially if they don't know him. If they give something to somebody, they want something back.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the mindset that I had because I knew that he was better off than me just holding. I'm wrong if I keep these shoes in my room knowing that I can help him in that situation. So anyway, he had asked the church to pray for me. And I believe in the power of prayer. And it was through the prayers of that church on that Sunday, the same day the Spirit spoke to me that I was going to be fine, that God just started to move amazingly in my life. And that journey of cancer went on. You know, it was a journey I had to go through. There were ups and downs and a lot of tough roads, but I never let the mindset that I had cancer take me over. I never let that take root. I said, I believed in what God spoke to me, is that this is a journey. He's got me. I got to just go through it.
And you're doing through all this, through work release and everything.
Yeah, so I went back to work release after being there, multiple medicines and things like that. They decided they were going to give me 30 more days to find another job, you know? So I went to that church and I asked them, I went out there and I said, thank you for praying for me. I believe in the power of prayer. Thank you for doing that. As I'm leaving that church that day, a gentleman comes up to me and offers me a job at a car dealership. And I went to work at a car dealership there at work release. And that was just the beginning of a journey of success for me, because working at that car dealership not only did it prepare me to get into that field, which is a very successful career that you can hold if you do it the right way, but also I was able to get medical insurance, things I didn't have, you know, because when you're in prison, you don't have any of that. And that was something that while I was in the hospital, another sign that I knew that God was making a way. That's what he does. He does the unthinkable. That's what we know that God can do. The doctor comes in and he says, you're going to have a hard road ahead of you. This medicine you're going to be on is very expensive. The treatment you're going to have is very tough. What's your plan when you get out? I said, my plan was to go to Texas and be with my father, who I had finally built connection with while I was in prison. He said, well, if you stay here, I'll treat you for free for a year and make sure your medication is free for a year. That medication was $10,000 a month.
Oh. Yeah.
And where was here?
Tallahassee.
Tallahassee. Okay.
So that kind of altered what I thought my plan was going to be. You know, all this planning that I thought that I had, God had kind of had a different plan for me. And also I was in the hospital, no insurance. The admin lady comes in and she says, we know you don't have insurance. You know, your bills are stacking up. They're getting quite a big here. And so we applied to random foundations that we have for somebody to pick it up. And we had an anonymous one pick it up. And so your $180,000 bill is wiped away. So any amount that I had in there was wiped away and cleared. All debt. That's something that God said and Jesus says he does. He removes all debt from us. Imagine what situation I would have had if I would have got out of prison, had all that debt on my back, all this cancer, all that, but God made a way. Through all the things that were supposed to burden us, he takes it. And that's what he did for me. And that's where my faith just grew stronger and stronger and stronger. Now that journey through cancer, you know, I got out of work release center. I went back, I got a job. I worked through the rest of the 6 months I was there. And that's where I met my wife. I was blessed. I stayed in Tallahassee. I met my wife, you know, beautiful woman, great woman. So, you know, something that I would advise everybody to write down your goals, write them specific. Because the same person I described in my journal in prison is the same person that I was able to marry.
Amen.
So I would advise anybody listening to strongly do that.
So you was going through treatment, the debt got wiped away. So by the time you left prison, were you cancer free at that time, right?
Oh, no, I was just starting my cancer journey. So part of that process with the special type of leukemia I had, CML, is your cells mutate. This is something that once you get diagnosed, always are going to have this. You always have to be on a form of treatment.
That's what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had. Right?
Correct. Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has the CML. So they put me on one cancer treatment, first to get the counts manageable. Then they put me on the Gleevec medication. That's the one that costs $10,000 a month that the doctor helped me get. Mm-hmm. And if the cancer lasts and keeps your counts down for 18 months, that's a medication you'll be on for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. My cells mutated, so I got out of prison, still on the medication, still taking this, and the medicine comes in the mail every month, and it's in like a styrofoam thing with radioactive kind of stuff all over. I mean, it's serious. It's chemotherapy drug. And I took that for 14 months, and my cells mutated. And meaning the cancer's accelerating, the drug's not working. Now they got to find the next thing. This was back in 2011. I got out in 2010. Right. This cancer, these kind of treatments were kind of new at this time. They put me on the same treatment that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was taking. It's called Tasigna. I took that treatment for only 6 months. The side effects were so severe on me because the fact that I was 24 and on this type of treatment versus someone that was over 55, it was affecting me completely different. Right. To the fact to where it was making it tough for me to go to work, throwing up, weakness. I mean, I was losing weight, just all the negative things and the hard things that come with cancer, But I had to have that mindset that I was going to push through. And thankfully, I was in prison, and my upbringing gave me that mindset that there was no laying down. You can't lay down. You got to just push through this. And I had the word that God spoke to me that I had to follow this process, whatever this would be. So to answer your question, no, that was just the beginning of the journey. That cancer journey went on for 10 years, the cancer treatment. Something I was supposed to still have today. But after 10 years, God completely cured me to where even the doctors don't know how it happened.
So you was going through that journey for 10 years, mm-hmm. but in that 10-year span, you also met your wife, I'm assuming, right? Yeah. So at the same time when you were battling things, somebody loved you enough to love you through everything you're going through. That's what I'm hearing.
For sure.
And that's a blessing in itself. And I got to commend you for being strong, because in life, just like you were able to beat the cancer eventually, everything starts with mindset. Yep. And sometimes that spirit of giving up will help us go down fast. So I'm just thanking you for having that faith and being a warrior to stick to it, because sometimes people get tired of the medication and just say, I don't feel good and I'm not going to take it. And life changes. So I thank you for being disciplined and staying in the battle.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And the mindset is key. And it's also not just, I'm going to take this medicine. I'm also going to take this and do the best things that I can know how to. I'm going to juice. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do the right things. I'm not going to fall into those old ways and old things and habits, but I'm going to make a new way. So that's also a huge part of it too. But me meeting my wife, that was a godsend. That was God putting my soulmate in my path at exactly the right time for exactly what I need. And, she's an amazing woman. And if it wasn't for her love that she showed me, something that I lacked early on.
That love you're talking about.
Yeah, that I would not be where I am today. And we instantly came together. I met her at the restaurant. I was working at the car dealership, and then I got out, and I said, I'm going to school. So answer your question, I'm battling cancer. I got out, working 2 jobs, signed up for school. This is just what I knew I was going to do, because I was doing everything that I didn't do before. And my wife was just along the way. And yeah, it was tough on her. I mean, she was in college, so she was 23 at the time. And there were some tough moments for her, but she was always right there. She's been my rock. We've been on this together.
What's her name?
Leor. And it's a Hebrew name. It means my light. And that's what she's been, is my light in my life.
Amen.
Yeah. God gives you exactly what you need at exactly the right time. And you might not know it, but you got to be open and seeing that God's placed that in your time and your life.
You still battling cancer. God is still blessed. You placed a beautiful woman in your life. You have any kids?
Yeah, sir. I'm blessed with 2 of them, 2 beautiful girls, Jordan and Abigail. That's also something the doctors told me that I would never have. The medicine that I was on, it was early medicine. There was no studies done. If women were taking the medicine, they said don't have kids. But there weren't any studies on young men, because once again, the medicine's for men 55 and older. So there weren't any studies, and they suggested strongly not to do it. But me and my wife knew that we were meant to have kids. We never let that seed take root of what someone else spoke over us. We knew that God intended us to have children. So we have 2 beautiful, healthy girls, and 8 and 7 years old. And they give me that love, all that love I didn't have, that feeling that, I always lacked, they give it to me. So I'm blessed to have them.
Oh, that's great, man.
And I see you got the shirt on. It says God made.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice shirt. I wish I had one.
I know a guy.
Yeah, but it's on a guy that I feel that is God made, because as you was giving your testimony, even you mentioned something earlier about you were reading things in the Bible and you didn't know about the Bible, but you knew that it was true when you seen it in your life. So that shows me God was in you. So when I see the title God made, that means something. Could you tell me what's the significance of that, or why you wearing that today?
Yeah, so this is a shirt that I made for my apparel brand. It's called Stand Up Now Apparel. And it all started because I believe we're all God made. I know we're all created in the image of God, and that seed and that spirit that he gave Adam is alive in all of us. And that blood and that faith, when we trust in him, he makes a way. So I created an apparel brand around my daughters. Matter of fact, it was a vacation event that my daughters wanted to go to Disney World about 2.5 years ago. And there were some things going out politically where Disney was saying they weren't going to say the boys are boys and girls are girls. That's something that I know isn't to be true, because I know what God's word says about that. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to cancel the trip. I'm going to go to Disney World because my daughter is going to be more impacted by her father not taking her to Disney World than, some political thing. But I said, I'm going to make a t-shirt and make my statement known. And I jumped online and created a shirt, and it said God made, and it had a man and a woman underneath it. And that big t-shirt company refused to make the shirt. I got the shirt made locally, wore it to the park just as a statement. And when I wore it there, I saw how hundreds of people came out of line to shake my hand or thank me for wearing a t-shirt, for just saying what's simple truth. And as I'm leaving the park that night, when a veteran got out of his wheelchair to shake my hand for being strong enough to wear the shirt, it hit me that we're in a spiritual battle. And that if we don't stand up now for truth and for God and put him on the forefront of this battle, that was a battle that we're going to lose. And so I started instantly to build a apparel brand designed to put God's name front and center so we can be evangelists. Because when I wear this shirt, you already can want to know that, hey, he must be a believer. Maybe I need to share something with him. In fact, I made this shirt as a conversation starter. So in fact, I met the creator of this podcast by wearing this shirt, and he knew.
McKenzie.
Yeah, Kim McKenzie.
Yeah.
He knew when he saw me in Publix, as he approached me for my shirt. I think it was a God Over Everything shirt that I was wearing that day. That he knew that I was a believer, and I gave him my card. But it was also at an event that the Jack Brewer Foundation invited me to, where I was sitting at a table with the other co-host. That I met him. So it's amazing how God works in full circle to make sure that it was intended for me to be on this podcast, And something I'll add, I believe in writing down what we believe in and asking God specifically for things and not knowing where that lines up. In January at our church, we had a believing event, and I wrote down that I believe that my testimony would touch the lives of millions. And I rolled it up on a piece of paper, and I stuck it on a wall in the church. In February, I went to a conference in Nashville, the National Religious Broadcasting Conference. I was on a podcast there, and as we ended the podcast and prayed, the guy there said, I'm praying that your testimony will be heard by millions. That's what he said. And then when Ken called me for me to be on the show, he said that your testimony is going to be on an app in front of millions of people in prisons. And I know that that's God just directing the path and lining the way of making a way that he does. And so I firmly believe in writing down and speaking to God and trusting in him and just following his steps. Because when we do that, things fall in line. It doesn't mean everything's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's always going to be perfect, but he always makes a way.
Amen. What type of impact you would like for our audience, and of course us, to have on other people? Your testimony, what type of impact would you like to have?
Just to turn to God, to really dig deep, get in the Word, and find your faith, and be a believer, and seek Him out.
Amen.
That's really the key. That's really the key.
I love the shirt, man. God made, and Stand Up Now.
StandUpNowApparel.com. You can check it out and get yourself some stuff there. We got this and a whole lot of other nice stuff.
Amen. And I'm glad you came in, because one of our guys had a battle with cancer. and I watched him go through it, and I also understand the support he had. So it's important that when we see people in these positions, because you shouldn't have been alone, and you weren't alone as the story progressed.
Mm-hmm.
But we should always be there for people that are in dire needs. And I thank you for your story.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for being able to share. And I share mine using these big words, but everybody has struggles they're going through. Everybody has battles. It might not be cancer, it might not be prison or whatever they are, but just knowing that when you seek God out, he always makes a way. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
This has been the Delta Prison Podcast by leanonmeusa.org. Around here we say,
Choose life.
Maybe we can change the world.